Hi, Facebook. I'm outside, freezing to death, which is fine. But that way I can be louder and don't have to worry about waking everyone up. So I'll give everyone a few minutes to come online. I know it's early. See how many people come on. I want to be able to share this out as well. So just give me a second while I share this out so that it's seen. When you pop on, make sure you say hi. This video has no sound. You guys not hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Oh, you can't hear me. Say hello. Hi, Natalia. Hi, Nikki. Just sharing this really quickly. When you say hi, pop on. Tell me how your Sunday's going. Share. Here we go. Cool. Shared out. Don't have to worry about that now. Hello. Good morning. Welcome. It snowed here yesterday. It's freaking bullshit. We finally winterized the garden, but we had left everything out that we had picked. And guess what? Now it's all fucking frozen. And hopefully not totally ruined. But it might be. So, today, we're just going to get started because it's freaking cold. I don't know how many people are going to be able to watch or stay on or anything. But if you can, grab a journal, because we're going to write down some things, not a lot of things, but a couple of things. So, make sure you have a journal. Let's see if I can change this. I've been able to edit it before. There we go. Grab a journal. Sorry. Hi, sorry. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just trying to edit the description so that more people know to grab a journal. Okay, hello, I'm here. Okay, so today we're going to talk about mommy guilt versus mommy shame. And you're probably thinking, Caryn, what is the difference between shame versus guilt? And I'm going to tell you. Now, a lot of you guys know I love Brene Brown. Talked about her in my last Sunday morning session. This is her book, Daring Greatly, which is the book she wrote before Rising Strong, which is the one I talked about last time. And this book is Daring Greatly, How the Courage to be Vulnerable Transforms the Way We Live, Love, Parent, and Lead. Okay? So, in this book, she talks about guilt versus shame. And she is a shame researcher. Brene Brown is a shame researcher in Texas. She's been doing this for, I gotta say, over 20 years now. When she wrote Daring Greatly, it had been about a decade. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you the definitions that she has provided, because that's how I'm going to lay out this class, whatever you want to call it. Is probably going to be about 45 minutes, guys, just so you know. So just so you're aware. Look at how cold it is. Freaking hate Utah. Here comes the winter. So her definitions of shame and guilt, so that we're all on the same page, are: shame is the intensely painful feeling of or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Something we've experienced, done, or failed to do makes us unworthy of connection. Shame isn't helpful or productive. It's more likely the source of destructive, hurtful behavior rather than the cure, because fear of disconnection is dangerous. Shame is I am bad. Okay? So guilt is holding on to something we've done or failed to do up against our values and feeling psychological discomfort. And guilt is helpful and adaptive because we're able to then learn something. So I did something bad. Another way of thinking about this is that if you did something to me, then maybe you would say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. So that would be guilt. Versus, I'm sorry, I am a mistake. That's shame. Thinking that you are the problem. So other examples are, I am a bad mom versus I made a bad parenting choice. Or talking about our self-image, I am fat versus I need to make healthier dietary choices. Or when it comes to mom shame and mom guilt, we're going to get into more specific details. But I just want you to realize the difference that shaming is I am blank versus guilt is I did blank. Usually something negative, and whatever it is that you did, you hold it up to your standards and your values, which is why it's so important to have these. I talked about it actually in the live that got deleted, so I'll talk about it now. Moms, especially moms, dads, all caregivers, you become a parent, and we all kind of joke that we wish that there was a parenting handbook. And the one thing that we don't ever usually do is create our own. And what I mean by that is that we don't ever write a list of what we expect ourselves to be as a parent. So we hold ourselves up to this either make-believe, unrealistic June Beaver, Mrs. C, Mrs. Cunningham, kind of mom. Or we're just happy that we're not the mom from Mommy Dearest. And we never really set a list of values or standards for what we expect of ourselves, not of our children, but of ourselves in the parenting role. What are your goals for parenting? I know that sounds really weird, but think about it this way. You don't do anything else in your life without a purpose to it. Eating, the purpose is to sustain your life and to put the healthy nutrients into your body and to keep going, right? Driving to work so that you can get money. Everything you do in life has a purpose. Do you know the purpose of your children? What was the purpose of you giving birth to them? Because if your only purpose was I need to procreate and I need to continue my family line, and there was no conversation besides that, and I don't mean what do your kids want to be when they grow up? That's not your choice. You don't get to decide. But as a mom, what was your thought process when you decided to have kids? Because if you didn't actually take the time to set up standards for yourself and your goals as a parent, how do you want your children to be by the time you're done with their 18 years with you, then you've already set yourself up to fail. Because like I said, you wouldn't do that in any other area of your life. For some reason, in parenting, we all just think it's somehow programmed in us, when what really has been programmed into us is 5,000 years of patriarchy, and it's not fucking working. Look at the amount of war. Look at the amount of power struggles. The fact that there are people literally still starving in Africa, but the amount of food that we're throwing away in America, this power struggle happening in the world, this is all because of the patriarchal world consciousness. That's the parenting that's been programmed into your brain that you think is just innately happening. It's not. It's programming from 5,000 plus years of a patriarchal society where we worshiped men and power over women and connection and femininity and all of these things. So, when I talk about mom shame versus mom guilt, the reason why it's so important for you to have a set of standards is because when you're dealing with mom guilt, you have to be putting everything you're doing up against the standards that you've created for yourself as a mom. So your very first assignment, we're not going to do it together because this could take a lot of time, but your very first assignment is to write down that list. My standards as a mom. It could be a list of things that you won't do. I will not hit my kids. I will not put them in timeout. I will not let them cry it out. Depending on where you are in your parenting journey, that could be how it starts, because it's a nice way to kind of get the thought process. What are all the things that I know that I don't want to do? The other problem is that as parents, about 90% of parents know what they don't want to do, but have no clue what it is they do want to do as parents. They don't know the effective parenting strategies. So for this, I recommend these books, The Whole Brain Child and No Drama Discipline. If you work with me in any capacity, I reference these books constantly, and they literally saved my life. The reason why I'm a parenting coach, though, is because parents don't have time. It's literally the number one concern that I get told when I try to find new clients, when I'm trying to fill my courses, anything like that, is I'm a mom, I don't have time, I already don't have time for myself, I barely have time to pee by myself, blah, 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 blah. So buying these books is a really good thing, but you have to read them. And that's where most people stop. They buy them and they're like, oh, they're on my shelf, that's good, right? Or they make like a chapter into it and they never like get to the meat. Once you read the books, I highly recommend that you get the workbooks that go along with them. They have awesome pages to work in. I haven't made it all the way through. Different graphs. There's like these cute little parenting scenarios like, calm down this instant versus I know it's hard, isn't it? Can't you tell me about it? And you can see like this mom's yelling, calm down right now, while her toddler's freaking out, versus this mom's like below his eye level and like trying to connect with him and is like touching him, and so like, oh, can you talk to me about it? So this is what I mean, the difference between like parenting techniques, right? So this is why I use this a lot. So before we get into why it's important for us to handle it healthily, shame versus guilt, let's talk a little bit about mom shame. We've all heard of mommy shaming. All of us. If you're in 21st century and you are on Facebook, you probably have been a part of a mom group on Facebook. And one of the biggest rules is no mommy shaming. And what they mean by that is there are very many controversial topics in the world of mothering. Some things include where to give birth, how to give birth, when to give birth, do you circumcise or not, breastfeeding versus bottle feeding, cry it out versus attachment parenting, when to give rice cereal, when to start on solids, co-sleeping versus staying in a bassinet, homeschooling, vaccines. I could go on. Like literally every single choice that you can make as a parent. It used to be just you. Like you knew and your husband knew and like the people who took care of your kids knew. But besides that, it wasn't like all over the world for people to know that you gave birth at home unassisted and decided not to vaccinate your kid and are homeschooling them or whatever it is, or the other way, like that you decided to have a scheduled cesarean and you formula fed from the very beginning and you let her cry it out for up to 5 minutes and she never slept in the crib with you. Like these are literally battles that mommies have to deal with all the time. Now, if we were living in a world of mommy guilt, what we would do is we would educate each other. We would say, ooh, okay, so as a mom, did you feel like when you wanted to give birth that you wanted to form a connection with your daughter? Oh, yeah, I did. I totally wanted to build a connection. Well, are you aware, based on, and give out those sources, that crying it out actually has long-term psychological effects? And here are some resources. Feel free to research it yourself. You're doing a great job. You're kicking ass. Being a mom's fucking hard. High five and move on with your day. That would be mommy guilt. It would be a way for them to have some sort of standard to hold herself against, like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't be allowing my child to cry it out because the doctor who created Cry It Out back in the 70s has actually come out and said that he didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. And there's been tons and tons of research done since then showing the psychological damage of allowing your child to cry it out, especially if they're under a year. Okay, that'd be fine, right? Like, the mom doesn't have to feel anything except for, ooh, I did something wrong. I let her cry it out, but it's okay. I know better now, and I'm still trying, and I'm gonna move on. Doesn't that sound like a beautiful, lovely world to live in? It does. Let me tell you something. That is not the fucking world we live in right now, people. The reason why all these mommy groups have a no mom shaming rule is because if that were the post, it would be like, are you fucking kidding me? You're the worst mom on the planet. You're gonna make your kid have ADD. They're gonna turn into a serial killer. Like, you're just making the worst choices and you are such a bad mom because of it. You are a bad mom. So, see the difference between, hey, are you aware that there's all these studies out there, and let me help you, let me teach you, let me build a connection and some community with you as a mom that's been doing this for a while? Because a lot of the times it's these first time moms, and it can be especially hard if you have postpartum depression, especially if it's gone undiagnosed, which it goes undiagnosed like a lot of the time, like more than 75% of the time. Unless you hit full-on postpartum psychosis, it's really hard for your doctor to diagnose postpartum depression, especially because us moms don't want to show any weakness or failure, so we're not going to admit to our doctor that we're having a hard time. Because we're afraid that they're going to come and take our kid away, because we admit to them that sometimes when the baby won't stop screaming after 4 hours of cluster feeling, you really are having serious thoughts about like walking away and leaving for like an hour because you just can't handle it anymore. And you don't want to tell your doctor that because you think that you're like the worst mom on the planet, but what it really is that your hormones are all thrown off and you probably have some postpartum depression and should be seeking some like therapy for that, and maybe some safe alternatives when it comes to like herbal remedies for helping you with that. I don't know if there's any antidepressants or anything that I would recommend, because it really is a hormone imbalance that occurs during postpartum depression. It's not really the same as like other types of depression, which is still like chemical imbalance in the brain. I understand that, but this is a totally different, this is caused by hormone imbalance. So you have all these mom shaming groups, or don't do a mom shaming group, anti-mom shaming, okay? And it's a rule pretty much every single, and like those hot topics are not allowed to be discussed. That's the other crazy thing, is that you have all these women out there having children for the first time that all they want to do is get some information, but because these hot button topics like breastfeeding, crying it out, circumcision, and vaccine are so like, people get into such huge, passionate debates about it, those topics are literally just like not allowed in these mommy groups at all. Like if you post about it, it'll be deleted. So how is that building connection? How are we supposed to, as women, come together in a connective motherhood tribe if we can't even talk to each other about the issues that are worrying us and that we don't know if we can trust our doctors about? Because a lot of us have doctors that got their degrees way before a lot of these more recent studies have come out. Like, maybe you have an awesome pediatrician that's going to read the most recent research, but I personally had to find a new pediatrician. He would not listen to me. He would read it all and still didn't care. And had I gone ahead and vaccinated my daughter, she probably would have died because she's allergic to eggs. And eggs are in all of the vaccines. They use it as a way to keep the bacteria alive inside of the vaccine. So that was my mommy instinct that I couldn't go and ask anyone about because it's completely hot button topic, and I'm an only child. Okay, I'm an only child. I'm married to an only child. My mom had me when she was 36. She doesn't remember 30 years ago what it was like to have a newborn. They didn't didn't get nearly as many vaccinations back then. All this stuff, and I had no one to talk to. The only people I could talk to were other moms that I knew were like non-vaccinators, but I had always vaccinated my kids. So it was a really weird feeling to feel like I didn't want to vaccinate Xena, and then found out after she turned 1 that she was allergic to eggs. So it was a fucking good thing that I never vaccinated her, because she could have gotten seriously sick or died. So that's my little thing, but I can't talk about that in any group. If anyone ever posts about it, like, the post's probably deleted before I get there, all because of mom shaming, because other moms out there are going to be like, if you don't vaccinate your kids, you can't come around my kid. She's not allowed to have a play date with me. Like, she's going to get all of my kids sick. Like, okay, that's fine if you don't think that the vaccines that your kids got worked. I guess She can't hang out with you. Her brothers are vaccinated. Her parents are vaccinated. Her grandparents are vaccinated. And as soon as they come out with a vaccine that doesn't have eggs in it, we'll talk. But they don't have that right now. It's literally not an option for her. But do I feel shame? Do I think I'm a bad mom because of that? No. I think I'm a fucking awesome mom because I was able to tune in to my own instincts and realize that there was something that wasn't feeling aligned, and I didn't do it just because society told me to. That's a big thing with me, guys. You're going to notice this, is that I don't tend to do what society tells me to. I tend to do a fuck ton of research first. So I'm not going to go any further down this story because that's not the point. The point was to let you know, like, I could have had a ton of shame and been like, I am such a bad mom. I'm the worst mom. She's going to get sick. She's going to get other people sick, and it's going to be all my fault because I didn't go and vaccinate her because of some stupid feeling, because I can't trust myself, because I have no idea what my own power possibilities are, which is probably describing most moms. And it's really sad to say so, but like, that was me until my last birth. The only reason why I was so confident about my choice with that was because I birthed her unassisted. Like, there was no one around. I did that. That was me. That was all me. And my whole journey for the last 18 or 16 months has been how to get back to that without having to have any more babies, because we're done having babies. But like, feeling that power, having that inner knowing of such, like, totally terrified because I had no idea what was happening, and yet so calm and like in the flow of awareness of what my body was capable of doing and the power that it had inside, and then birthing my child by myself, and the midwife showing up 15 minutes later like she was on her way. And again, that could have been a moment of mom shame. Do you know how many moms literally saw the pictures of me giving birth to my daughter over a toilet, which was the most comfortable place for me to birth her, and literally told me that I was a bad mother? Oh my God, how could you dare put your child into such risk by giving birth at home without anyone around and on a toilet? How disgusting. Okay, guys, this is my second at-home birth. Laboring on a toilet is totally normal. Lots and lots of babies are born in a toilet, even hospital toilets, which are probably grosser than my toilet, by the way. I flushed right before she was born, like, because the water broke. Like, you weren't there. You don't need to judge me. What I did was fucking awesome, and very few women in the Western world can say that they do that. But plenty of moms who have birthed unassisted on accident don't feel that way. They have a ton of resentment. They have a ton of fear and anxiety, and they go in and they rush their baby into the hospital, and they do all the things that they're supposed to still do, and the doctors are telling them, oh my God, why didn't you come here earlier, and blah blah blah, and they literally start their mothering journey by being shamed. You are such a horrible mother that you gave birth by yourself. Like, how dare your baby be born in the car before you made it to the hospital? The fuck? Like, this really happens? And it does. It happens a lot because of the patriarchal society. Like, for some reason, all these men are obstetricians and they want to be involved in the birthing, even though they're not around for any natural births, and they're really just trained surgeons. But I digress. Sorry, guys. Birth is like a big thing for me. If you're pregnant or know someone who's pregnant and they have questions about natural birthing, send them my way. Now, the mom shame continues even further with, you guessed it, all of these wraps and pills and systems and all this stuff that as soon as you give birth, within 6 weeks, you're supposed to be back to your pre-pregnancy size. Fucking bullshit. Let me tell you. The amount of money that the patriarchal system has been able to make off of women and their poor body image issues is disgusting. And let me tell you why. Because the way that they get you to buy all these pills and all these shakes and all these wraps and all this shit is by shaming you, not by guilting you. If they were guilting you, then you'd be able to make an informed decision, because remember what we talked about. Guilt is about taking what you did, holding it against your values, and then seeing if there's a disconnect, and if there is a disconnect, then learning what you need to about what you did, or maybe shifting your values and learning where that actually lies so that they can meet up and it can be okay. Versus shaming is, you don't have a set of values, you just are this bad thing, and you just are horrible, and you just are like, it's you are the problem, not the action that you did or didn't do, whichever the case may be. So they shame you into saying that you are a bad mom if you are fat, if you are unable to chase your children around, if you have postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety, which more moms have postpartum anxiety than depression, actually. Because they're literally holding themselves up to June Beaver from the second that they give birth, and they don't even realize it. Because again, they didn't create their own set of standards. They just are going based off of what their mom did and what their grandma did and what their grandma did. And I would like to remind you that all of those women doing what they've done and continuing to teach their daughters to do that has gotten us to the state of affairs that we're in today. Do not be fooled at all into thinking that the situations going on in the world right now, when it comes to like the Me Too movements and all this rape culture and all the school shootings and all that shit, do not even pretend for a second that that's not because of the way that we've been raising our children. And the way that we've been raising our children is not having uncomfortable conversations, not connecting with them, not teaching them at every turn. It's been punishment and consequences, and more punishment and more consequences. And even if they're the natural consequences, I know that's the shit. I swear I had my sound off. I know that's the favorite thing in Love and Logic is natural consequences. There's no such fucking thing, guys. Like, if you have to make it up, unless it's literally like the natural consequence to your kid putting his hand on the stove is that he got burned. Besides that, there's not really like a natural consequence. You're still punishing your kid. You're still creating some arbitrary negative response to whatever it was they did, instead of taking that moment to teach them why what they did wasn't acceptable, because we in this family have, you guessed it, a certain set of standards. It's amazing what happens in your household, in your family, when the parents or the primary parent, or however your living situation is, the caregiver, creates a set of standards and then starts holding the family accountable to these standards. And if your children are old enough, you can talk to them about it, okay? If your kids are like toddlers and younger, like, just start holding them to those standards. Realize that they're not going to be like standards up here. Like, you have to level them to like, what's the toddler equivalent to We Don't Lie? They're totally lost in like pretend world all the time. It's hilarious to me watching kids at swim lessons and their parents are sitting there trying to have like a reasonable conversation with them. Again, because I'm 3 kids in and I'm like, your kid's like 3. He doesn't give a fuck about that. He's just trying to figure out where your boundary is and go past it. And if you don't know when your boundary is, it's going to be a lot easier for your kid to push past it constantly, and then you're going to be going crazy all the time, and you're going to think to yourself, wow, I'm a fucking shitty mom. My kid is a holy terror, and he is always doing things wrong, and he's always messing up, and he's such a bad kid. And here we've gotten to it. Right here, guys. This is the fucking linchpin of everything I've been talking about. If you don't process your mommy shame into mommy guilt, which I'll tell you how to do in a second. If you don't process your mommy shame into mommy guilt, you are effectively teaching your children how to live in shame. We have the highest level of young children who are obese. We have the highest level ever of young children who have type 2 diabetes. That used to be a thing only that adults got. We have the highest amount of children under the age of 10 on pharmaceutical drugs for anxiety and depression. 10-year-olds are anxious and depressed, people. What the fuck? 10-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 6-year-olds are getting put on ADD medication, on anti-anxiety medication, on antidepressants. Why? Why are all of our children being put on all these things? And I know it says mommy guilt. I'm a mom. If you're a dad, there's such a thing as daddy guilt too. I'm not biased, guys. I'm just a mom, and I help mostly moms because we're still living in a system where mostly moms are the stay-at-home parent, and mostly moms are the ones that can see something's going on. Again, this is a societal thing, so the more dads that start getting involved, the better. But that's gonna, like, history shows over and over and over again, actually changes happen with women. Like, you look at the, like, slavery movement, like the abolitionist movement, mostly women were against slavery. You look at women's rights issues, the mostly women. You look at civil rights issues, again, mostly women. Any of the huge battles that have been won in America over the last 20 or last 100 years, last 5,000 years, any big shift was because the mothers, the women, realized that they needed to come together and make the change. It wasn't the dads, like, no offense. They just didn't, they don't see the world in the same way. They don't, again, a lot of stay-at-home dads get it because they're in the trenches, but they're having to go over so many more hurdles, which I have the lovely benefit of being married to my husband for the last 10 years, and we were both really young when we got married, so I feel like I'm extremely qualified to talk to dads about this because my husband and I have really gone through this together. But again, I say mommy guilt and mommy shame because that's what happens. Moms get shamed way more than dads do. Usually dads are like, it's their wives, it was the fault. It's like your wife's fault that you don't know how to do stuff, like, which is kind of ridiculous, but it's true. Like, that's the thought process, at least. If you don't get over your mommy shame and change it into mommy guilt, though, you're teaching your kids how to do it. How many of your kids out there are, like, let's say under 5? Let's look at the 5-year-old range. Because my friend just told me this story yesterday, and it seriously blew my mind. Her 5-year-old, one coloring, if he gets outside of the lines, says, I suck. I didn't do it perfectly. I'm a bad drawer. Okay, he's 5. And he already has such shame on how he is expected to perform. And it's not like, I'm not saying it's her fault. What I'm trying to say is that everyone who raised him has probably done what I did to my kids, what we all have done to our kids, which is tell them that they are this. How many of you have told your kids that you're a liar? Stop being a liar. Stop being a bully. Stop being a blank. Stop being an asshole. Stop being a whiner. Stop being a crybaby. Stop being a blank. When you tell your child that they are a blank or they are being a blank, you are shaming them. You are shaming them, and you are causing dangerous and destructive behavior because you are corroding their connection to you. You are taking their connection that they have innately built to you and smashing it and burning it and cutting it and doing everything you can to tell them that they're not worthy of your love or your connection. So, because they are a blank. They are a liar. You're a liar. Stop being such a drama queen. Stop being such an asshole. Stop being such a little shit. Like, all these things that we tell our kids, and we don't think about it, guys. Like, I have to say, my other piece when it comes to shame and guilt is that there should not be any... I'm here and listening and need to hear this. I'm so bad about saying, just do what you're supposed to. Stop being a little asshole. Yeah. So that's something that we all say, Miranda. Like, don't feel guilty about, or don't feel shame about that. So here's my big piece. Just like you can't blame our grandparents for smoking cigarettes when they were pregnant with our parents because they didn't know better, you should never ever judge yourself for not knowing these things. Everything that I'm telling you is based on years and years of shame research and neuroscience. That is all recent, like within the last decade or so, the information that I'm giving you. And your parenting is probably based off the way that you were parented or the way that you've watched your siblings parent, if you are fortunate enough to have siblings, which is awesome. Again, I said I'm an only child, so I've had to learn all of this on my own because I'm an only child, married to an only child, and we have older parents. So, like, asking them is just, like, fucking pointless. Why would you ask someone who raised a kid in the 80s how to do it now? Just saying. So never feel bad about not knowing it previously, because the beautiful thing about children's brains, which I showed in my live earlier this week, is that they are not only complex, but they are changing, and most importantly, changeable. Up until the age of 22, our brains are constantly shifting and changing. So as soon as you realize that this is what's going on in your life, you can start being the one with the fully formed brain, can start making the changes necessary so that your kids can break this habit. And then if they break the habit, then their kids are going to benefit. And then you've now been the piece in your whole family tree, or at least your line of it, that has changed the system. And then we're going to see in another generation or two, like a decrease in world poverty, a decrease in violence, if we can really get this idea of shame versus guilt and connection versus punishment really across, we could literally, like, we could be the ones that change the world because of it. Not because we went out and taught all the other adults, but because we taught the children how to have connection and how to notice the difference between shame and guilt. So what do you do about it? You're like, okay, Caryn, I get it. I have a bunch of shame, and I apparently shame the fuck out of my kids. What do I do about it? Number one, like I said at the very beginning of the video, sit down and make a list of standards that you are going to hold yourself to as a parent. What is your purpose in being a parent? What do you want to teach? What do you want your kids to know? By the time they're 18 and leaving your house, hopefully, by the time, 18, 20, and they're leaving your house, what do you want to have accomplished? What is your goal? What is your purpose? Why did you have kids? You can write that down at the top as your journal question. Why did I have children? And maybe the first answer, like for the first minute or two, you're like, I have no fucking clue. Because I was told I was supposed to, because my husband wanted them, because all of my siblings had them by the time they had been married for 2 years, blah, blah, blah. And maybe you come to find out by the end of this that you have zero understanding or comprehension as to why you decided to have children. And that's totally okay, because now you're aware, and then you can move on. So wherever you are on that process, you then start writing a list of standards I hold myself, or that I hold my children to. Like, we don't lie. I expect that I don't tell lies. If you don't lie, your kids aren't going to lie. And that's like even the little white lies, right? Like, you think that it's not going to be effective, but like they learn how to lie from you, and all of a sudden you have a 13-year-old who's a fucking immaculate liar, and you cannot tell the difference between his truth telling and his lie telling, and he doesn't even know the difference. And all of a sudden you're in therapy because you've raised a pathological liar without even realizing it. I know this sounds super like, oh, so scary. It's true, guys. Like, we teach our kids because they learn from watching us, not from what we say. Like, I'd say over 90% of what a child learns is from watching us. So, you want to know why women have such, or girls have such issues with their bodies right now? It's because they've watched their moms stand in the mirror and talk about themselves when the mom probably wasn't even watching. Puts on a dress, gets her hair done, looks like a fucking queen as far as the little girl's concerned, and then she hears her mommy say, ugh, I look so fat. Oh my gosh, look at those wrinkles. Oh man, I really need my chin taken care of. Look at that double chin. Oh man, I should probably get my boobs put up here. And the whole time, originally, the little girl thought that you looked like a fucking queen. She thought that you were the prettiest queen and so gorgeous and just glowing. And then you say something. And instead of saying like, damn, I look good, or ooh, look at how pretty this dress is, something positive and upbeat that you can say about yourself, you say, damn, I'm fat. And then it goes down to, oh, I look like a whore in this. And you go and change your clothes into something with like a high neck and long sleeves. And now your daughter has equated that sexy dress with being a whore. And she's 6. Okay, so realize that everything you do affects them way more than anything that you say to them. They don't give a flying fuck what you say. Do as I say, not as I do is bullshit. Because they're gonna do as you do. So the first step into changing your shame from guilt is to create your set of standards, figure out your purpose for being a mom, like what's the point? And then the third thing is to start identifying the behaviors or actions or experiences as separate from yourself. So I am a bad mom, guilt. I did blank, therefore blank. So I'm sorry, I made a mistake in thinking that our coffee date was at noon when it was really at 11. I'm sorry, that was a mistake I made. Not without an excuse though. You don't need a, well, I'm late because like I'm not talking about excuses. I'm talking about the action. You show up, you're late for a coffee date with your friend, and the first thing you say is, "I'm so sorry, I made a mistake. I thought it was at 11, not 12." Or 12, not 11. Okay? That's fine. That's guilt. That's, I made a mistake. Next time I'm going to do better. You have a learning opportunity here. Versus, "I'm sorry, I suck." Do you hear that? Like, how many of you say that without even thinking, like, "Oh, I suck"? Stop it. Like, right now, take any of those I statements. If it's not, "I am beautiful, I am a badass, I am a powerful queen, I am the most hot piece of ass here on this planet," like, stop saying it. "I suck. I'm a horrible person. Like, all these I statements. "I am bad." Like, "I suck. I'm sorry, I suck. I'm late." Versus, "I'm sorry, I'm late. I thought it was at 12." Or, "I'm sorry, I'm so late. Traffic was bad." Or, because there can be like legitimate excuses. Legitimate excuses exist. I'd say less than half of the excuses given are legitimate. But if you're stuck in traffic, maybe you should have just called. Whatever. But if it's because you really thought it was at 12 and it was at 11, don't say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I suck." Say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I thought it was at 12, not 11. Like, your friend is going to understand if you thought there was, and now you know, and there's a learning experience for you to double check it, or put it in your phone, or text her that morning and double check what time it's at. Again, learning experiences. You can't learn anything from shame. It's impossible because you've made a decision and you're stuck in it's like placing a stick in concrete that's almost dry, and the second you put it in, you like can't pull it out. That's shame. Versus guilt is putting it in and being like, "Oh fuck, it's at an angle," but you haven't even poured the cement in, or the cement was just barely poured, so there's tons of room to move around, and you can take it out again and readjust and put the pole back in. Okay? So, imperative. It's imperative that you learn how to change your mom shame, "I am a bad mom," into mom guilt. I did this mom thing and therefore I need to correct it. And how do I correct it? I learn for it. And the reason why, once again, is because we are killing our kids. And you guys think I'm being dramatic, but if you go back and rewatch everything I've been talking about, you can tell I'm not. Pharmaceutical companies have taken over America, and we are medicating our children at a ridiculous rate. Our kids are dying from obesity and diabetes because we eat like shit and we don't do anything about it. We just say, "I'm too poor. I'm a fat ass. I'm too lazy." All these stories that you tell yourself over and over in your head that become your excuse. It becomes your excuse for why you act the way you do, because you say that you are that. What if instead of saying you're fat every day, you started looking in the mirror and saying, "I'm gorgeous"? They've been able to find, there's not as many studies as I wish there were on this, that we really do create our reality. So when you start using some of these affirmations, and you can't just look in the mirror and like say it but not really believe it, it doesn't fucking work. But for example, I was a size 14 and weighed 190 pounds at the beginning of this year. And I was 7 months postpartum with my daughter. I decided that it was time for me to start getting in shape. Not because I thought I was fat, and not because I thought I was a fat mom, or because I thought that I was like ruining my kid's life because I wasn't exercising, because I wanted to get in better shape. I was feeling so good on the inside with all the self-development that I was doing that I wanted my outside to match. So I started, I gave a lot of shit to the pills and the wraps earlier today, but I started doing a weight loss system with a health coach who gave me all sorts of awesome things using a local product. Like, I felt really good and aligned with how I was losing the weight. I wasn't just doing it because I felt shame about the way that I looked and that I needed to change. That's what happens with dieters and how they diet, and they go on all these yo-yo diets and you never stay off. It's because you think there's something wrong with you and that's why you need to lose the weight. Versus with me, it was that I felt so good on the inside and felt so happy and bubbly, and the outside wasn't matching. And I was all like, well, I need to make some changes. I need to take some action. I need to teach myself how to be healthy. Through that course of time, I've actually become vegan. My body literally started rejecting meat. Like, I don't eat it anymore. Hi, Rachel. Hi, everyone. Hi, Chell. I don't eat meat anymore. My body started rejecting it. Yesterday, I actually ate 3 gummy worms, and it took me like an hour and a half to fall asleep because my stomach hurt so bad. I knew that there was gelatin in it. I wanted to taste the gummy worm. I learned my lesson. Gummy food's just not worth it anymore. But this is my body reacting to me. This is my brain power reaching, like, helping cause the difference in my life. I'm now I'm probably 160, so that's 30 pounds, and I have no idea what size I am. I have to literally go to a tailor to find out all my sizes because every part of me has shrunk. Like, I have a thigh gap. It's weird. My arms don't jiggle the way they used to. It's the craziest thing, and I didn't really do anything. Like, I don't feel like I'm stuck in a diet where I have to be a certain way. My body is rejecting the meat, guys. I didn't choose it. I'm not like some crazy vegan activist that's telling you to go watch all these movies and see how horrible they're treating their chicks. Don't get me wrong. Now that I'm a vegan, I'm learning about it a little bit more. But that's not the reason I'm vegan. The reason I'm vegan is because I wanted my body to align and match with how I was feeling on the inside. I didn't feel shame about the way I looked. I felt guilty because I had made a lot of bad choices and I knew it was affecting how I could parent better, because I wasn't able to run around with my kids and I wasn't able to chase them and I wasn't able to really explain why we were eating the things we were eating, and I knew that I was setting them up to like repeat the things that have happened in my life. My parents have been struggling with their weight for as long as I can remember. My dad's been on and off yo-yo diets and all this stuff. But had I been shaming myself into this, I've been shaming myself for 10 years and it's never worked. I've gotten down to 165 before, and it was either through pretty much anorexia, extreme body dysmorphia issues, or because I was working out super hard, like way more than I was supposed to, and like putting myself at risk, and then it would never stay. I would always jump back up to the 180 area. Now, I'm 6 feet tall, so you couldn't really tell, but I could tell. There were parts of me that were jigglier than others, and I felt ashamed of them. I felt so like, I am fat. I am not fat. My body, my vessel is overweight, and I would like to make a change of that. There's a really distinct difference between I and me that is very psychological and very, like, I can go a lot into it. But once you really differentiate between the I and the me in your life, you're able to shift so many perceptions of, I am not a bad mom. I've made some pretty terrible choices as a mother. But I am not a bad mom. And those choices allowed me to learn. My biggest one is honestly the reason why I'm a cannabis activist is because I have a really bad habit of running away when I am uncomfortable or overwhelmed. It's been that way as long as I can remember. I think it's because I remember my parents both used to use that as their mechanism too. They didn't want to something super horrible happened, so one of them would walk away. So I think that's where I learned it from. But when I was on pharmaceutical pills for my fibromyalgia, I ran away and drove for 2 hours without realizing it. That's why I use cannabis now for all of my pain issues, because the pharmaceutical pills made me go crazy. I also probably had some undiagnosed postpartum depression. I just didn't know it. But the pharmaceutical pills added to it. So that's that could be a huge trigger for shame. Like, I am such a bad mom. I run away from my kids when they overwhelm me, and I just want to get out of here. And I, like, statistically, guys, the parent that leaves in the middle of the night with no note, that's the mom most of the time. Yeah, dads walk out, dads leave, dads get into a fight and never come back, but actually, like, sneaking away in the middle of the night and abandoning their children full on, that's more likely to be the mom. And the reason why is because of the shame. The shame of, I'm a bad mom. I am a bad mom. I am a horrible human. I am ruining my kid's life. It would be better if they were just without me. I would be better if I was without them. If I don't get away, I'm going to do something horrible. Versus the guilt of, I know, I am aware that I have a habit of running away when I get overwhelmed and anxious and freak out and want to just, like, hide. But I'm aware of it, and I have a standard in my parenting where I'm not going to run away from my kids. Now, I do utilize mommy timeouts. They're a big thing in my house, because that's my mechanism that I'm using instead of running away, instead of getting in my car and driving for 2 hours before realizing it. You know, that kind of psychosis hasn't happened since I stopped taking the pharmaceutical pills, but it did happen once, and it scared the fuck out of me, because not only was I driving without being aware, which, terrifying, like, the amount of people, like, I could have gotten in a fucking accident and would have no idea that I was driving, but it was the fact that that was my, like, go-to reaction, was that I wanted to run away from my life. So now I take mommy timeouts. If things get too intense for me, I will get down on one knee, look my kid in the eye and say, I really want to talk to you about this, but what I'm going to say is unreasonable and is not a proper, is not the right thing to do in this situation. So mommy needs 5. And my kids know what mommy needs 5 means. And they go and they do their thing, and I take my breath and I figure out what I need to talk to them about. And then I go back and we fix it. So I never say mommy needs 5 and then don't come back and talk about it, guys. That's not helpful. And if you work with me as a coach, we can talk about these skills that you can start to learn and cultivate, which have honestly saved me over the last year or so, ever since I started learning them. Like, I was a screamer. I was a go-to-your-roomer. I didn't know any of the psychological effects that I was having on my kids by the way that I was acting as a mom. Like, really fucking them up, and then realizing that I was pretty fucked up, and it was probably because my parents were fucked up when it came to parenting, and their parents were fucked up when it came to parenting, because no one's really ever parented the way that I'm talking about. It's a very new concept, and again, like I said at the beginning of this, most people say that they don't have the time, but I would like you to go back to your list as to why you became a parent. Because if you don't have time to figure out how to parent effectively and to build connection and to teach your children how to be decent human beings, then how can you ever assume that our world is going to get any better than it is right now? Because it's not. Nobody's ever made a change in parenting before. It's fucking mind-blowing. Teach the kids. The only people who have figured out that the best way to change the world is to get to the kids first is the military. And that's why public education exists. If you go through public education, it's actually a military tactic from Prussia when they figured out that the civilians wouldn't follow the general's orders over the people who had been trained in the military camps. The militia didn't give a flying fuck about what the general was saying if it came to, like, dying. They would just abandon ship. So they created the public school system to put your kids into conveyor belts so that they believe their teachers and their principals and the system over you. And if you've ever gotten into a fight with your kid over, like, a fact that they learned in school, you know what I'm talking about. That's the only people, that's it, that I can find. I've been trying to find it for months at this point. So if you can find something else, the only place that I can find that they have figured out the way to change the world is to get to the kids first is through the public education system. Now, I'm not saying that everyone should homeschool their kid. If you're a stay-at-home mom, I kind of wonder why you don't. But that's not my choice. It's not my place to decide that for you. But what I'm saying is that if you decided to have 1 kid, 2 kids, 7 kids, whatever, 12 kids, you have a responsibility to teach them two things. How to build connection and true belonging, and how to not be a shitty human. It's pretty easy. Pretty build connection with people, and you probably won't be a shitty human. They kind of go together. And remember, what does shame do? Shame makes them feel unworthy of connection. When you shame your kid, when you shame yourself, you create this idea in your head that you are not worthy of connection. You create this lie, this story that you tell yourself over and over that you're not worth fixing. And if you're not worth fixing, then you start teaching your kids that they're not worth fixing. Or you start telling your kids that they're not worth being around unless they are acting a certain way. Or you keep telling your kids that they're an asshole. And then they start creating this idea that they're not worthy of connection and love and true belonging. And then it keeps going down. And we end up where we are right now with the highest rate of obesity, the highest amount of school shootings, the highest amount of rapes, the highest amount of poverty, like the total disconnection and pandemonium going on in our world right now, simply because moms have been shamed for the last 5,000 years and haven't known the difference between shame and guilt. So please go ahead, rewatch this video. There's a whole lot of awesome points in here that I've covered. Your homework is to make your list. Why did you become a parent? What was the purpose? Why did you do that? And then what's your list of standards and values that you're going to start holding yourself to and your family to? And then how can you start shifting some of these I am statements into what you've done? So I am a bad mom. What is it? What specific actions and experiences have you had that are making you believe that you're a bad mom? And now switch the responsibility onto those actions and not onto yourself. So if you think that you're a bad mom because you've been calling your kid an asshole, then recognize that you're calling your kid an asshole and stop doing it. And now you're not a bad mom anymore. And now you don't have to feel guilty about it. Like, calling your kid an asshole doesn't make you a bad mom, by the way. I call my toddler an asshole a lot. I did notice, though, when I stopped calling him an asshole, the craziest thing happened. Are you ready? Are you ready? Come here. He stopped being an asshole. Crazy, right? Crazy. It's really that easy, guys. You create your perception. Like I said with my weight loss journey, like I've said with everything, I go back and watch some lives from last year. I started doing lives about a year ago. Most of them were on my liquid collagen that I take for my arthritis. But you can see it. You can see in my face I'm not as happy of a person. You can tell in my voice that I'm not as lit up. You can tell in what I'm talking about that I'm really just trying to sell you something and I don't actually give a fuck. Versus now, I don't care if you buy my liquid collagen. It's amazing. It will change your life. You absolutely will feel less pain. Like, it's incredible stuff. I'm not gonna sell it to you though unless you want it. If you want to know about my liquid collagen, feel free to message me. And if you want to know about more of this momming stuff, guys, like, hi, I'm here. I'm a pleasure parenting expert. This is what I do now, guys. I teach. Please let me teach you. I teach you how to do this. I teach you how to become a reprogrammed mom bot, as I like to call it. A mom bot is someone who's just sitting on that hamster wheel day in and day out and is so sick of how she's momming and has no idea how, like, knows everything she doesn't want to do and has no idea what she wants to do. There's 3 ways to work with me right now, currently. The first way is through my mom bot reboot. It's 3 weeks. It's pocket coaching. I'm in your pocket in a walkie-talkie app. Messenger on Facebook, really helping you to retrain some of these patterns that you've gotten yourself into. The next level is to join my MomBot Mastermind. I'm taking 10 moms through that. It's going to start November 14th, and it's going to just be more of a group setting. Lots of exercises, lots of group talk, group coaching. Again, the Boxer chat is going to be available, but as a group setting, and that is really a mastermind getting really deep into what we're talking about here with the whole brain child, no drama discipline, Brene Brown and her research, all of that really in depth. It's a 10-week course. And then the final way to work with me is one-on-one. And that's a 3-month package. And that's you and me every week talking about your specific issues, having me on Facebook Messenger and email, being able to, you can also add the pocket coaching for an extra fee for that actually. And really dialing in onto your specific parenting situation and your life and getting your whole life in alignment. So you'll see, guys, that not only am I a pleasurable parenting expert, but also a whole life alignment, because honestly, being a mom is like this much of you. If I'm 6 feet tall, my momness is like this much of me. Well, maybe here. But there's all of me and there's all of you. You were not a mom always, and while you will always be a mom after this, like, empty nest syndrome is totally a thing. And a lot of the moms that are empty nesters that I know, that I talk to, tell me, like, I wish that I had someone like you when I was with my kids, because I wouldn't not know what to do with my life now. I'm now totally kidless. The last one just left the house, and I have no fucking clue what to do with my life. And now I'm starting to work with them to help them find their purpose, even though these women, like, literally could be my mom. But they've spent the last 25, 30 years of their lives only being this much of themselves, and they don't know how to deal with it. There's a reason why the majority of divorces actually occur with people who are empty nesters, because as soon as there's no kids around, the parents don't even know who they are anymore, and they haven't had a connection with each other either, and so they go their separate ways. We don't like that. It's not cool. It fucks up with all sorts of family dynamics. And if you've been together only for the kids for the last 10 years, that's fucked up too for everyone. So let me help you find passion, pleasure, and purpose in your whole life, in all areas of your life, so that you can be a whole person. And when you show up to mom as a whole person, everything gets different, and you can be more present. You can be more positive. You don't have to worry about other parts of your being, because they are solid. And the momming stuff becomes, something that you get to do. I love momming now. I used to hate it. I used to totally resent the fuck out of my kids. It sucked. I was one of those people that was like, why did I have kids? I have no idea. I got knocked up when I was 19. Why the fuck did I have kids? I don't know. And now I'm like, I had kids because I want to change the world. And my kids are going to help me do that, because they are going to be reasonable, passion-filled, purpose-filled, positive humans who then have an impact on more humans, and then we can have an impact on the whole world. Because remember, as a mom, you cannot only just change your life, but you can change the life of your children, your whole family, and generations to come. If you decide to invest in yourself and take the time to figure out what makes you tick as a human, not as a mom, and not as a sister, and not as a daughter, and not as a wife, but as a human, what makes you tick? Because then you can use that power and that fire to fuel the changes you need to make everywhere else, including changing your mom shame into mom guilt. So, I will let you all go. This was longer than I thought it was going to be. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I'm going to go inside and get coffee because it's fucking cold here. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Feel free to direct message me if you're interested in working with me at all. If any of that sounded interesting, let me know. I can send you the links to get you in. There are still spots for the Mom Bot Mastermind. Again, that starts November 14th. I'm super excited about that. And I do still have spots to start some one-on-one people before the end of the year, so that you can get a jump start on 2019 and just kick ass all of 2019. Because you invested yourself now at the end of 2018. So, I love you all. Have a great Sunday morning. Thanks for hanging out. If you missed the homework assignments or want to watch any of the rest of it, let me know. Or not let me know. Watch it again. Share this out to your friends. This information, it's seriously imperative that we teach as many moms as possible the difference between mommy shame and mommy guilt, because you and me together, we can change the whole world. Okay, I love you.